Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about my favorite draft prospects and we'll continue that into tomorrow. Definitely have some guys, including Alfred Collins, that I want to make sure we talk about because I think it could be really special players at the next level. But let's get into my top 10 picks. I won't go all the way 32 because a little bit too much for me, I'll be totally honest, and it would be just hyperspeed throughout this thing. So wanted to make sure I was able to kind of get into this a little bit more deeply and break down the picks as I see them. And we'll do no trades in this. We talked about the Tennessee Titans that they could possibly trade down. That's definitely something to watch with. And overall, I think what the biggest thing that depends on that is how aggressively do the Raiders like these quarterbacks? You know, how badly do they really want a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders? Then I think they very well could trade up. And then maybe the Titans, how badly do they want a quarterback? So it'll be interesting to watch that one unfold. I'm going to do no trades just to make things a little bit more digestible, but definitely something that could happen, especially with this first pick. But with this first pick, I think it is going to be Cam Ward, the quarterback over there at Miami. They did say they wouldn't overlook a generational talent. When you have a quarterback need like they have, I think you just have to. Plain and simple. I think you just need a quarterback in that place. Now, maybe they could go out and get a Kirk Cousins and get a quarterback a little bit later in the draft, but it's just not a safe bet. I think you take your guy when you have him, you take your number one pick when you have him, and you take Cam Ward. He's a guy that I think can very well give your team calmness. The biggest thing that I watch when I watch the Tennessee Titans is just everyone seems so panicked at every single moment, especially Will Levis in a lot of big time moments. Cam Ward's not going to bring that. He's going to bring leadership. He's going to bring a really calm nature to this team, and I think they very badly need it. So I'm going to go with Cam Ward. I think he's a guy that the second you get him in that interview room and you start to talk to him, you're going to fall in love with him. So I'm going to go with him taking number one overall. If the Raiders trade up into this position, then you could have a little bit of a different conversation. Maybe it goes Shedeur because that has been a big storyline throughout this thing. But I will say Cam Ward is the number one overall pick in the 2025 draft, at least as of right now, and I think he's going to be a really special player at the next level. The Cleveland Browns, I said it a couple of days ago, I don't think the Browns are letting this guy get past him. I think Travis Hunter is too big of a player to let get past him, and he's one of those freaks of the group. There's no doubt about that. He is a guy that can play wide receiver, play corner, and when you look at the Browns roster, they need both. There's no doubt about that. I think they need the wide receiver just a little bit more than they need the corner, though. I think they need that guy to make plays on the outside, and I think that's very well the way that they could use him. Now, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of works out and what the split is there, but the reality is, I do think this Browns pick just makes sense. I think they're looking around. They very well could go for a quarterback, but with all of the cap problems that they have right now, I think they'd be more willing to probably trade for a guy maybe like a Kirk Cousins that already is going to get a lot of his salary covered by the Falcons. That probably would make a little bit more sense to me at the quarterback position. So they could go a quarterback here, but I think they're just going to go who they think is the best player in this class, and I think it's going to be Travis Hunter for them with the need they have at wide receiver. Shedeur Sanders, the number 3 pick overall in this draft to the New York Giants, and we saw him throwing to Malik Neighbors at the Heisman ceremony. I tend to think we're going to see it on Sundays for a long time to come. The Giants just need a spark. That franchise just feels sad to me for a long time, but especially over the last little bit. It's just felt very, very sad. You need a guy to bring the energy back. This is that guy. Now, I do think there are some questions. People have said there are questions about, would Deion let him play there? I have to assume the answer is yes. I don't think the Giants are one of those teams that he'd be very staunchly against. I don't know those teams, though. So it'll be an interesting thing to watch. Maybe if he's not picked here and someone else is picked, then you know exactly what's happening. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. But the reality is he's a guy that can change your franchise, and he absolutely will change your franchise, at least over the offseason. You'll get a lot of people involved in that team that had kind of tapered out over the last couple of years. So I think they go for the big swing. I think they take Shedeur Sanders and they have their quarterback for the next little bit. The New England Patriots are just not letting this defensive talent go past them. Mike Vrabel's not watching this guy play football and saying, nah, we'll let him get to the Jaguars. He is too good to pass up on now. You do need offensive tackles. You do need wide receivers if you're a Patriot, so maybe they'll go offensive tackle here, but as far as I'm concerned, when you see that guy on tape, it's going to be impossible to pass him over. And I think there's other offensive tackles maybe in the early parts of the second round that you could very well get that could be great pieces as well. And then wide receivers, I think you could get guys later as well. So overall, it's a group that is going to be really interesting to watch. I think the Patriots and Mike Vrabel is just going to look at this tape and say, we got to get this guy. At some point, someone's going to say that, and if it's beyond 4, then congratulations to whoever gets him because you're getting an absolute freak, and that might be the steal of the draft. Mason Graham here at number 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think when you talk about a new head coach coming into the mix, and he is an offensive head coach, so maybe he takes a little bit of a bigger swing, gets a wide receiver or something like that, but the way that I see it, offensive tackle is another one that they might need here, but the way that I see it, just get the guy that's comfortable. Just get the most safe pick on the defensive side of the ball that you possibly can, because Jacksonville has a million problems. It's not just the offensive side of the ball. It's not just the playmakers or the offensive line. They got problems defensively as well. If you have that stalwart on the defensive side, where you have Mason Graham is the quote-unquote quarterback of that defense, and then you got Trevor Lawrence on the other side, at least you have a base to build around. And I definitely think he can be one of those guys where we talked about Aaron Donald before, might have been a little bit too big, but an Aaron Donald, a Chris Jones guy that can be your defensive tackle for 10 years and be there for a very, very long time and be used in a number of different ways. So I think it's another guy where maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars have a little bit bigger of a need on the offensive line, but the reality is when this kid falls to you, you take him and you don't ask any questions. Will Johnson, a guy that I absolutely love. And there's some people that are dropping him a little bit lower. Now, if you dropped him to 15 to my Falcons, I would have no problem with that. I'd be very, very excited. But at the end of the day, he is a guy that I think can make all the plays in the world. He is so, so good in coverage, and definitely a guy that I don't get him dropping out of the top 10, if I'm being totally honest. The ability is out of this world, and when you look at the Raiders, they do need their quarterback, no doubt about that, but they also have the 37th pick in this draft, where you could get a guy like Quinn Ewers, or you could get a guy like a Will Howard, possibly, at that position. I think you take the best defensive player that you have on the board. I think you take the guy that you can leave an entire side of the field open and just say, Will Johnson's over there, we'll be more than fine. So the way that I see it, I think the Raiders have a number of different positions that they could go after in this spot, but the way that I see it, Will Johnson's the biggest freak of the bunch, and he's definitely a guy that can give that back end some much-needed help. And then you figure out the quarterback likely in the second round with one of those QB3, QB4 types, whether it's Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, Jalen Milroe. That'll be an interesting thing to watch down the stretch. But as of right now, I think you just take the best guy on the board, and that will be Will Johnson. Will Campbell is my number 7th pick for the New York Jets. The reality is, if the New York Jets do not take an offensive tackle, pack it up. I know there's some other things that they need, and there's definitely some big-time things that they need, but the reality is you have a quarterback that possibly is coming back after another year rehabbing from his Achilles injury. You got to give him help. You just have to. So maybe they'll go wide receiver, maybe they'll go crazy, but just get the guy that can be your offensive tackle for the next 7 years. Just get the guy that you feel very confident in, and get the guy that will be a huge piece in protection. Then you get protection in the first round, you get a weapon in the second round. Maybe Rodgers will find their way back to New York, and then we'll see what happens from there. But overall, I think he's one of those guys that you have a million problems over there at the Jets. Get the guy that makes a huge problem go away pretty quickly. Get the guy that at least can handle the offensive line, and then the quarterback will come into play. And then the wide receivers and all that other stuff, you always build from the inside out. This is going to be the guy that really helps out that inside. Tedariah McMillan going to the Carolina Panthers as far as I'm concerned, and it's just one they need very badly. And they need a lot of things very badly over there in Carolina, so to be totally fair, it'll be interesting to watch what they do here, because they could very easily go offensive tackle, but I think they're just going to be really, really hard-pressed to pass up on a guy like this, especially when you have Bryce Young that is going to need more weapons going down the road. You know, Adam Thielen's a great player, not quite what you need, and Xavier Legette's awesome. He's also not quite to the level that you very much need right now. I think Tedariah McMillan is perfect. I think the size is going to be a huge advantage for a smaller quarterback like Bryce Young. I think the comfort in the way that Tedariah McMillan runs routes compared to the way that Bryce Young throws balls, I think it fits together really, really perfectly. I think he's going to be a really special player. And then you can worry about offensive tackle in the second round. There will still be some guys out there that can make some big-time effects for you, but I think this guy's just too good to pass up on. But at the end of the day, whoever does get this kid is getting someone special. I just think the Carolina Panthers are going to say, we're going all in on Bryce Young this year. We got to give him a guy to throw the ball to and feel confident in. That is probably going to be Tedariah McMillan. Then we got Mykel Williams. This is the guy I talked about him being a Cam Jordan type guy. He might just be Cam Jordan on his Cam Jordan's former team, because I think the New Orleans Saints are looking at him and saying, this is a defensive guy we can build around. And with all of the things happening around there, where I don't even know if they have a coach that they even think they can get right about now, but at the end of the day, at some point, all of that stuff is going to have to be figured out, and the best way to start all of that is just get the stalwart, get the guy that you feel like you can build around for the next 10, 12 years. I think this is that guy. I think this is that guy that can really elevate a defense right away, and then you build the linebacker room out just a little bit better. You build out the other pass rushers. You get the interior line a little bit better, and then you just let this guy be the leader of your team. I really do think he's a 10, 15-year vet in the NFL, and I think he's someone that is going to be really, really special to watch. Now, New Orleans Saints do need offensive tackles. There's no doubt about that. I do think there will be a couple of guys in the second round that they will take. I just think this Mykel Williams kid is someone that a specialized position in the right spot, I think you take him. Now, it could be this next guy that they take, and then that would throw some things into whack. But for my number 10 pick, I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks Jr., the Texas offensive tackle. This is the guy they need. There's no two ways about that. They badly need help on the offensive line. If they pick anything else other than offensive line, they're losing their minds, plain and simple. So they got to figure that out, and it very well could be Josh Simmons, depending on how that goes. It very well could be a couple other guys, but having Darnell Wright on one side of the ball and then having Kelvin Banks on the other is going to be a special thing to watch. And let's say they feel good about the offensive tackles they have going into next year. I don't think they will, but let's just say they do feel good about it. You can slide him into guard, and he'll be an absolute beast as well. So I think he's a guy that's going to be a really, really long-time vet. I think he's someone that could be protecting Caleb Williams for his entire career. So he's a very, very talented kid. Definitely a guy that maybe has a couple of different things that he could get a little bit better on, but at the end of the day, as polished as you will find them, and absolutely someone that if you're the Bears and you're taking an offensive tackle, take him and just reap the rewards. He's going to be incredible and definitely is going to be a huge, huge piece to this team. So the NFL draft, it's always awesome. I always really enjoy the NFL draft time because you get to kind of blur the lines between college football and the NFL. You get to kind of feel a little bit smarter over some of the NFL people because they'll say things like Anthony Richardson's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's not, and we watched him at Florida, and we very much knew that. But at the end of the day, there are always some really fun things that come out of this. We'll continue to talk about this over the next couple of days before we get on out of here. We'll do a couple of different, more guys that I'm watching for, more of my favorites, and we'll include Alfred Collins in that as well. So a lot of different things still coming throughout the week, but that's about the NFL draft. For the time being, that's where we stand right now. It's going to change a lot. There's going to be a lot of things happening, including the Senior Bowl this weekend, that will shake up this a little bit, but definitely going to be a really fun thing to watch. But that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the social pages for all the content and updates you could possibly need. We got great people covering every single sport you could want, so anything in the world of sports you need, come on over to GSMC and we have you totally covered. But thank you once again for listening. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about Michigan fighting back against the NCAA, what next head coach is going to be the first to win their national title, everything in between, right? Everything in between that on tomorrow's show at 9 a.m. Eastern, so I will see you then.